I dropped into the magma, and it had a much more sensuous quality to it. And I realized it was the womb. It was like the uterus for the earth. And there is a makeup for me of the genitalia, that the penis and vagina, they're like the earth for the genitalia. Then you come up to the prostate and the uterus, and they are the heart and the chest and the lungs. They're more the emotions and the loving quality. And then you come to the testes and ovaries, and they're much more to do with the intellect and higher energies. And as a mirror of the face, the vagina and penis are more to do with the lower face, the mouth. The uterus and prostate are more to do with the center of the face, the nose, the sinuses, the nasal passageways. This whole area is more to do with the heart. And then the ovaries, testes, much more to do with the eyes, the brain, and the higher self. So it's one of the holograms we can work with in holographic breathing. And I realized that this time, as I've been moving through the earth, I've been moving through it as a reflection of the genitalia. That's why it felt so different, because it had those qualities to it. And I dropped down deeper and deeper into the magma, and had a very sensuous quality, and it was quite interactive with the earth. There was a very healing thing going on there. And normally when I had done the dropping into the earth, when I dropped down quite far into the magma, below me would be the giant crystal, and I would never really voyage into that. But this time, as the energies got stronger and I dropped deeper and deeper, and I could heal it in me, really healing my prostate and also kind of love type energies, healing that and cleansing that. But instead of this big crystal there, you know, as you dropped into the earth, it was just soft and flat and kind of have a leathery look. And I allowed myself to drop down to that. It was very interesting because it was getting hotter and hotter and more sensuous until my feet landed on this very soft, it was like a leather type feeling. I thought, whoa, that's interesting. I was just standing there, and then I went through into it, and I realized as I was coming to it, it wasn't the crystal, it was an ovum. It was the whole center of the earth was a giant ovum, and it represented the energies of the ovaries and testes, the higher energies, and also the creative energies and creation. You know, this is where creation happens. This is where life is created. And there was a temperature change. As I went through that, the temperatures went from really very warm and almost unbearable. I mean, suddenly it was cool. And in the brain you do have all of the cranial fluid. It is a coolish, watery transmission. So relates in me, the testes, in women would be the ovaries, but also it relates to the brain and the higher energy. And I just drifted down through this arena and watched these opaque colours just washing back and forth, and this wonderful healing energy, just healing that area in me and healing all through me. And the reason I'm talking this is because it's going to be a long meditation, so I just want to give you the energy in advance so you can be with it as you go through it yourself. And I dropped deeper and deeper, and this energy cleansed and healed and more deeply through me. And I just slowly sunk. I just went with it. It was like this thing pulling me deeper and deeper into the earth. And as I came to the center of the earth, it became very quiet, very meditative. You could feel a really deep presence there. The stillness was deafening in a way. It was just so quiet, so still. And I walked into this slid into this very peaceful, because I was going down and then I started moving forwards, into this very peaceful kind of domain. And right at the center of it, there was a sphere. And I slowly moved towards this sphere, and it was very attractive. There was this, oh, you shouldn't go there type feeling to it, because something was going to happen with this sphere. It had quite an ominous type feel to it, but at the same time you could feel this polarization between me and this sphere. I was being pulled to it, and from the whole genitalia I could feel this pull from this genitalia to it, my whole body, like a magnetic quality. So I just came and I just circled around this sphere for a while, and then kind of pulled me in, and I just went with it. My hands landed on it, my feet landed on it, and my feet just slid. Well, it waited for a while. There was this recognition. Ooh, boom, what's that? Then my feet went in, my whole body went in, and as I went inside, the earth disappeared. It went, and what it felt like to me was just the center of the universe. It was a deep void, like the place of creation where everything is born out of and everything goes back there to die. So in a way there's nothing there, there's the void there, but the whole of creation comes out of that nothingness. And on that particular journey, I stayed there for quite a while, and it was just a let go, very healing. Even though it's a nothingness and a void, it's not like there's no energy. There's the energy of nothing, there's the energy of the void, and you can let go of all of these things you've held on to for lifetimes and lifetimes. You can just keep just shedding all of these layers, and there comes a point where you start moving out of the nothingness, and there's stars. It's a bit like you come from this void and into space, and then when you come into space, there's two. There's the space and darkness, and there's the stars. So from a nothingness, suddenly you've got two. I would hang out in the heavens, in the stars, in the space, and there would be this very fetal feeling, like I was like a baby in my sack of water, and with the umbilical cord there and the placenta in the sack, and be imbibed by the starlight and the space. I would come back into the earth, and I wouldn't arrive in the center of the earth, which was much more to do with the ovaries and testes and the higher energies. I would arrive in the magma, which was like the womb. So I was like this baby in the womb of the earth, and I would gradually grow in that womb and form and be nurtured and looked after and grow and grow and grow and grow until I'd risen up to the crust. I'm coming up under the Earth's crust, and when I would come to that, I couldn't go any further because I was in my sack with my umbilical cord there, and it would press there for a while, and after a while it would just pop, and then I'd make my way up into the earth crust, the earth is a woman, so that's the vagina, and suddenly you feel your body. While you're in the womb, you feel the emotions more, and you're surrounded by water. But then when you come into the vagina or the earth's crust, you're surrounded by the rock, and you can feel your bones, and you can feel your muscles, and you can feel all of this thing and this whole birth process as you come up through the earth. And this isn't repeating the birth you've had. this, you can create this anywhere you want, and in that creation of a new birth, of a universal birth, or a birth from within the earth, you can take it slowly, you can go a bit faster, you can move your body around, you can let your neck unwind, and it resolves all of these things from birth. It gives you a new imprint, rather than just having one imprint from when you're born as a child. Suddenly, oh, I've got another imprint, look, I can let it all, it doesn't have to go that way, it can all unravel this way. It's incredibly deeply healing on many levels, and it also significantly aligns our energy and our DNA with the earth, with the mother. And gradually I'd come up through that, and then you get born, I would get born back onto my boat when I was living on the boat there. And you take your first breath, and you're still doing holographic breathing. You still got the umbilical cord is still down into the womb of the earth, so you're still being fed, and then you start breathing, and then that becomes a much more energetic connection. And it's still doing holographic breathing, which is very similar to suckling. And you got an aura, whereas before you had a sack of water, you've got an aura in that place, and there's a connection to the light and nature and the air and the higher energies, and everything looks new, everything looks fresh. And when you walk out in the fields, it's almost like you're going to fall back into the earth. You can feel the earth isn't quite as solid as it was before, and you get a much nicer connection to the earth. So I wanted to teach that again, and that was a favorite one of many people, so I wanted to teach that again. But when I came to rerun that journey for myself, I had a hard time doing it. And there is a more complicated way of doing it, but I wanted to do that simpler version first, but it just came into this other version, so I'm going to teach you that. And it incorporates something a bit more. And what that is that the urinary tract and the genitalia match each other. Energetically, they're polarities in a way, but shape-wise, they're the same. You have two ovaries, you have two kidneys and two adrenals, then you've got the fallopian tubes, and you've also got the tubes coming from the kidneys down to the bladder, and then in the middle you've got the bladder, and behind the bladder you've got the uterus, and in the men it's the testes and the prostate rather than the uterus and the ovaries. And then from the uterus you've got the vagina, and from the prostate you've got the penis, and within that you've got the urethra. So they match each other in shape, but they also balance each other energetically. For me, you can't do one without another. And there's a very interesting thing that not many people realize about their sexuality and their creative energies, is they think of, or people generally think of, the genitalia as one thing, as one energy. But for me, the uterus and prostate and ovaries and testes are of the fire circuit and relate to the hara and the heart. They've got a very fiery energy. The penis and vagina is not part of that circuit for me. The penis and vagina energetically connect to the bladder, and then the kidneys and adrenals, and a lot of our experience of our sexual energy is actually coming from the adrenals and kidneys. And because we think of the genitalia as our sexuality, it causes a bit of a divide, and people don't realize actually, well, this is coming from back here. And in the orgasm, a lot of those feelings are from the kidneys and adrenals coming down through the bladder and through the vagina. So when I would drop into the earth now, knowing we're going on a journey and the earth's crust is the penis or vagina, I can feel that. And as I drop in, as soon as my penis is connecting with the earth, there's this energy instantly running from that up to the bladder and then to the kidneys and then into the adrenals, and there's this pinging in the adrenals as they release, and then you get the kundalini releasing out through the head. So in a way, I can't go into the earth in the same way as I went in that initial one. When I went in it initially, I wasn't thinking of the earth crust as the penis and vagina. I was just thinking of it as the earth, as the base energy to do with the bones. So I didn't go into it of, oh, this is the sexual organs, but it did become that. And I just did a huge amount of work with this when I was working in a health centre, and just lots of women, very kind of quite wealthy business women who had come into menopause early. And one after the other, I would match their genitalia with their urinary tract. There would be often would be a charge in the bladder which I would let release and release and release, and then when that got to a certain level of releasing, suddenly that whole area would free up and their energy would drop down into their uterus, which it hadn't been in, and suddenly you get this lovely warmth coming out of the uterus. And then you work with the kidneys and adrenals, which were wasted because of the business environment, and as that released, that would start firing down rather than up, and the ovaries and their ovaries, because it's mainly women, would start working, and they get their periods back. All these women started getting their periods back because the stress was affecting the urinary tract and the kidneys, adrenals, and that in turn was stopping feeding the genitalia. And also maybe just that they were trying to fit into a male model a lot of times rather than a female model. So I could see that through bodywork. So that is what we're going to do today. We're going to go down into the earth as the hara for the earth, because the penis vagina is the hara for the genitalia, but it is also majorly the hara for the urinary tract. And we'll be going down as the hara, the bones into the earth. But we will connect it to the bladder, to the kidneys and adrenals, and it gives it a very different feel. And then as we drop down into the heart of the earth, which before was the uterus, it will be the uterus, the prostate for the men, and the bladder. The bladder is also a big cavernous thing. So that was my dialogue with it, was something, oh, people aren't going to drop into this lovely warm magma, because when you drop down into it as the bladder, you are feeling your inner self, and you feel it, oh, well, it's not a hot magma, it's actually quite cool and blue. But you can get both, and it's good to drop down into that for a while, and then you move a bit into the magma and then a bit back into the bladder. And that also, once the bladder is going, that starts releasing the kidneys, which are a higher energy but are full of water, which is making its way down into the bladder. I don't think there's any sphincter muscles happening there. I think they are just hollow tubes, so there's water coming into the kidneys, and that's the tubes are full up, and that gradually fills up the bladder. So there's a connection directly through the water there. And then when we drop down into the center of the earth, it's not just the ovaries and testes, it's also the adrenals. And you get this dialogue back and forth between the ovaries and testes and the adrenals. And a lot of orgasms when we're making love is this back and forth between the urinary tract, between the kidneys, adrenals, the bladder, and what we think of as the genitalia. That jumping back and forth between circuits gives this ecstatic quality to it. And there's two sides to both sets of organs. There's two kidneys, there's two adrenals, there's two ovaries, two testes, and then they come together into one. So there's a male and female side to them, and also there's a polarity between the two different circuits. And then as you go in, what happens when we go into this sphere at the center of the earth is not only do we end up in the void, but rather than, as I described before, the ovaries and testes working, the whole genitalia works, the whole body works. So you get the hara, you get the heart, you get the intellect and the higher energies all aligning. Suddenly it isn't in one place, it's in the whole body, it's through every organ, everything. The energy is running through everything, the kundalini is running through everything. And this connection to creation and beyond is when that all aligns, when the hara, the heart, the intellect and the higher energy, or the higher energies coming to them, when they align together so they're all feeding each other, this opens up the crown chakra at the top of the head, and then that brings in this presence of complete emptiness and this ability to let go of our karma in that space, so you can let go of it. So in that place, the kidneys, the adrenals, the bladder, the penis, vagina, the whole urinary tract and the whole genitalia, they're all working, and it works a higher energy, and you can feel this pinging backwards and forth between the ovaries, testes and the adrenals, and that allows the kundalini to rise out through the top of the head. And that's one of the reasons, I think, when people's kundalini rises, there can be a lot of fear, because before it actually starts leaving through the top of the head, it starts leaving through the adrenals. And the adrenals, one of the things they hold is terror. As an emotion, they hold terror. It's where it's the fight flight organ, and there is a quality of terror there. But as the kundalini is rising, it's not like it's making people scared. People are processing that terror that is already resident in their adrenals. It's like the last set of organs before it really does its thing. So quite often that thing just before it really goes is the adrenals. You start processing what's in them. But it's hard, for me it's incredibly important in our society at the minute, because most people's adrenals are just completely wasted. And mine, for having Lyme's disease, which attacks the nervous system, mine certainly are wasted. I use this to rejuvenate my adrenals. So, and then it's the same journey, but when you come back in to the earth, you being, when you're in that space, it's quite orgasmic. It's an orgasm of the energies going beyond and going back into creation and going into beyond. So it's a bit like an orgasm upwards. So you don't feel it so much an orgasm because it's going through here. But when you're coming back through the crust of the earth, well, once as you drop back into the uterus of the earth, suddenly it's very physical again. You can feel your body, you can feel yourself being nurtured. And then when you come into what would be the vagina of the earth, it's more physical again. But what you start getting as you're moving through it, one, it's this birth that you can let happen in whatever way. But also, because we're working fully with the sexual energies, with both the urinary tract and the genitalia, and we've been in the higher energies, that energy that is being then, as it's been working through the ovaries and testes, that starts releasing downwards through the uterus, then down through the uterus or prostate, and then down through the vagina and penis. And it has a much more earthly orgasmic feel, very similar to when people are making love, because it's traveling down and it's traveling through the lower organs. And I don't know about other people because I haven't taught it to other people, but for me it releases down in that way, and it feels quite orgasmic, and it releases into the earth, it releases into the vagina of the earth, and that happens for a while. And then when that is finished, the adrenals start pulsing and the kidneys start pulsing. Then you get the wave of energy of that quality of orgasm moving down through the bladder, through the penis, vagina. So that also gives it this orgasmic quality, moving back and forth between the energies releasing down into the earth. And my feeling, for me, it's very enjoyable. But in that enjoyableness, this thing which was a birth, and you're very much, letting it, it's great, you're letting it be how it is, but you're still going through a birth, suddenly becomes an orgasmic birth. And it becomes much, much easier, and the whole spine can straighten, and anything that's being left in the body from when that happened this incarnation or from several incarnations really can start working its way through. But everything becomes much easier. But in a way, you are making love with the earth, and you are getting, in that way, you are getting a deep rooted connection with the earth. One thing people generally like doing is the feeling of orgasm and making love. People generally can let go, and that is designed as an enjoyable thing. So suddenly, through this very orgasmic thing, your whole DNA is getting a connection with Mother Earth, which I think for me is an incredibly important thing at this time. We seem to have forgotten that if we destroy the earth, we're not really going to have anything left to live on, really. So for me, this is quite an important thing. So from a spiritual orgasm, and an orgasm happening with the higher energies, when you're in the center of the earth and the void and the energies going home, when you're being reincarnated back through this universal birth, then on the way back you get an earthly orgasm, and you get an orgasmic birth, and you get that imprinted into your body, into your DNA, as something you associate with. You're not just associating with your original physical birth, you will associate with this new birth, ecstatic birth. And I always remember a midwife, because I did quite a lot of work with ladies giving birth, and I always remember this midwife saying to me, the baby comes out in the same way as it goes in, with a lot of noise. So you can have that experience, and for me this particular seminar, not just good for us as a karmic thing and to release our karma and balance things. I think for any mother, even the one before was good for women giving birth, but this one can give women or anyone an experience of orgasmic birth as a blueprint to help in that whole thing, really. And then as you come to the surface, in myself, now I don't know what happens in the women, but it's interesting to me because the head of the penis has always felt like a different energy to the rest of the penis. It always seemed to have associated with my head. It seemed to be the higher energies for the penis. So when I was running through it and doing this new way, I was quite interested. As I was coming to the surface of the earth, I could feel the head of my penis really lighting up, and a whole different energy happening there, and a stronger orgasmic feel to it, really. And I would guess in the women that is the vulva. When you're coming to the surface, the head of the vagina, or the vulva, just becomes more awake, and there's a different energy to that. It's like the higher energies for the penis and the vagina. And that is the same time as the baby is crowning, or you're crowning. As you're coming out into the earth, there's this extra or orgasmic energy to it. And then when you are born in this way, and you're just in your room sitting there, you still have this deep, passionate, intimate relationship. And from the head of your penis or your vulva to the crust of the earth. And so you just have to, well, you can sit anywhere, but you can sit in a field, and you've instantly got this connection with the earth through these organs. And as soon as you allow that, from being earth-side to letting the end of the penis or the end of the vagina connect to the energies of the surface of it, suddenly you get the connection, whoa, and you connect through your whole genitalia of the kidneys, the adrenals as well, and the bladder and the whole genitalia. But you can feel it through the whole earth, to the center of the earth, and then into the center of creation and beyond. Just an instant energetic connection there, to not just as what people think, oh, it's just dark under the earth. There's this whole holographic expanse there. So that is the journey we're going to do today. It's a bit more, so I've done a long talk, but in a way I needed to let people know of the energies you were going to be traveling through to go on this journey.